All right, now that we got the, hopefully the technical problems out of the way, let's get started here. First of all, good morning. Thank you all for coming. If you have your phones available, now would be a great time to get a picture of this so you can download all of the slides, everything I'm going to show today, all the code, everything. It's all available here. I'll show this again at the end, so don't worry if you don't get it. But let's move forward. So how many of you are familiar with this acronym? Who can tell me what this stands for? Yeah, I hear a couple of them out there. It's time to recover. It's also known as the time to remediate or the time to respond. And this is typically the measurement that we use a lot of times when it comes to understanding our performance and how well we can orchestrate and swarm to a problem and respond to an incident, respond to an outage, respond to some sort of problem. And every year, the DevOps Research and Assessment Organization, otherwise known as DORA, they put out the State of DevOps. In this year's 2019 report, there's a few numbers I'd like to share with you. First of all, the organizations out there who can respond and recover, first of all, detect and then respond and recover from incidents in less than an hour, they're classifying as high and elite performers. So if you look through their whole report, those who can respond pretty quickly and recover pretty quickly, they say are elite. Those who can respond and recover from outages or problems in less than a day, they categorize as medium, and then our low-performing peers are taking between 1 week and 1 month to recover from some sort of service disruption. Now, one of the more important, or maybe we'll say shocking numbers from the State of DevOps report, I think, is that those elite performers are currently recovering over 2,600 times faster than their peers. They're also deploying to production over 200 times more often. So for a lot of us, we've already come to this realization, but there's still maybe many of you in the audience who this starts to challenge our beliefs that holding off on production deployments and releasing very often is unsafe. It's actually starting to show in the numbers it's much more safe to do it more often in smaller chunks. But those who are elite and high performers understand that your ability to detect, respond, and recover from the inevitable failures that come from technology, especially in the new world of DevOps and continuous delivery, those who can respond to problems faster are the ones who are very successful and starting to really lead the way in a lot of the things that we're doing. So many of the things that we're going to be talking about today, we've already kind of covered in OPS20 if you were here in that session. You're familiar with the Dickerson hierarchy of reliability that David Blank-Edelman introduced to you. For those of you who weren't in on that session or you just need a quick overview, let's go over just a few seconds what that is. At the bottom, at the sort of the base of our reliability hierarchy here is monitoring. You have to have good observability, principles and practices and tooling around monitoring that can tell you what's up with your system, how is it behaving, it gives you context. All kinds of good stuff kind of roll up into monitoring, as David covered with SLIs and SLOs and a lot of the things that we're learning from the site reliability engineering community. Then we move into our incident response, and that's where we are today, what we're going to be talking about, and then post-incident reviews, testing and releasing, capacity and scale. Those are all topics we're covering in this path to sort of mirror the hierarchy of reliability. And then we've also got the dev and UX stuff, which we're not saying isn't as important or isn't important. It's just not part of the sort of the early concerns when it comes to building reliable and resilient systems. So we're here talking about incident response. My name is Jason Hand. I'm one of the senior cloud advocates at Microsoft. Follow me on Twitter. I'm super excited to be here again in Orlando to talk to y'all about responding to incidents. Now, before we get too ahead of ourselves, I think it'd be a good idea to just make sure we're all on the same page of what we mean about incidents, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me that we're talking about service disruptions, okay? Now, service disruptions can happen in lots of different ways. It could be something where our SLOs were broken. There's lots of different sort of ways to identify what incidents are, and that's kind of some of the things I wanted to point out, is that in many cases, there's some other nuance to incidents that I think it's important we start all discussing. And first of all, historically, we've feared and avoided incidents. In many cases, it kind of felt like if there was something that went wrong, there was some sort of incident, we might be better off downplaying the significance of that incident or mislabeling it or just not identifying it as a service disruption at all because of some fear of reprimand for fear of what might happen to us. It seems as though it's just a bad reflection on our engineering efforts and our company in general, and so we kind of just sweep a lot of things under the rug and pretend that they didn't happen, and we avoid them entirely. Another thing that we've noticed too about incidents is that they're subjective in a lot of ways. If you ask an engineer at any of, if you all out in the hallway ask what is an incident in your company, I bet you get all kinds of different answers. There's a lot of subjectivity that happens when you start talking about what is an incident. Is it only when a customer is impacted? Is it only when an SLO is breached? Is it only this or that? You'll get a lot of answers all over the place. So subjectivity is an unfortunate property of incidents. And then the last thing I want to point out is that we as technologists, as engineers, as whatever it is we do, most of our work is very planned. Especially in software development, we spend a lot of time working on story points and figuring out what our sprints are and when are we expected to have this thing done. We know what we're supposed to be working on at any given point. So when an incident occurs and we've got some sort of disruption in service, that's unplanned work that really throws off a lot of the things we're doing. But through some of the conversations in the DevOps community and site reliability engineering, we're starting to rethink incidents and understand that these are actually investments in our systems, including the people part. How do we respond? How do we improve at that aspect and that, dealing with the inevitable problems that are going to come up? So I like to remind people that incidents are really seen, they should be seen more as just the pulse of your system. They're telling you more about what's going on. And if you've got a good foundation for monitoring and you're starting to actually have observability into parts of your system and maybe be alerted on things that you weren't previously, of course you're going to have a lot of alerts and a lot of incidents and a lot of opportunities to respond. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just telling you more about what's happening. And all of that monitoring stuff, a lot of the things that you heard about in OPS10, that all falls into what we would call the detection phase of an incident. It's when we learn that something's wrong. But what we're going to talk about today, what this session is going to focus on, is what happens next. What is the coordinated response to the problem? And I think most of you would also realize that there's also that part where we have to fix something, which we would call the remediation phase, and we'll touch on a little bit about that. And those are just the first 3 phases of 5 that make up what we say is the life cycle of an incident. And we can look at all of the different components of a life cycle of an incident, and it allows us to identify and isolate certain areas of improvement. Maybe we want to improve our detection methods. Maybe we want to improve our response methods, which is what we're talking about today. By now, I'm guessing you're probably familiar with Tailwind Traders. This is our fictional online retailer with a great new e-commerce system run on Azure. It's all in Kubernetes. It's the shiniest and greatest and latest. But Tailwind Traders is just like any other company, and they have challenges that I imagine many of you are probably familiar with or have experienced when it comes to dealing with service disruptions and outages. And the first one is that now that they've moved into a lot more modernized systems, they have higher monitoring, they're starting to actually see more disruptions in service, or what at least appears to possibly be more disruptions in service. We don't maybe always know. And right now there's no way for us to track any of that. We're not keeping tabs on what's happening, how often, and where, and who's doing what. So that's the first challenge that Tailwind Traders is faced with. The next one is that when things go wrong and teams do start to do something about it, there really isn't a coordination between who's doing what. It's very ad hoc, it's very reactionary, it's very chaotic. Another thing that we're trying to do better at is, because we haven't been tracking any of this stuff, if someone outside of the people who are really doing the response want to know what's going on, want to know the status of the situation, want to know how bad it is, they have no way of going and finding that out. And there's a lot of people in an organization that need to know when there's a problem so that they can do their job and they can sort of help you stay focused on resolving things. So we want to figure out what's a better way to just provide more information about what in the world's going on. All of this, you can imagine, is leading to longer and longer time to resolve. It's taking us longer than what we think it should to do what used to be, or what used to seem like simple things to fix. But now our world is a little bit different. We've got some new technology. We're in the cloud. We're following some of the newer ideas and principles around site reliability engineering and DevOps. And then last, we're starting to get kind of burnt out on the problems we're having, and we're seeing a recurrence of things. Common mistakes are happening over and over again. So these are the things that Tailwind Traders, and I would imagine many of you can really associate with in terms of the challenges when it comes to responding to problems. Now, if we're going to talk about building foundations around incident management. I think that you have to start with these three concepts here. We need rosters, roles, and rotations. And I'm going to go into in detail of what each of these are, but we're really just trying to create some sort of organization on who's doing what. So let's start with the rosters. Rosters, as you can imagine, are made up of engineers, made up of just the people in your team, and there can be multiple members in a rotation or in a roster. There can also be multiple rotations within rosters. So everybody has their own rotation. I might be on call for a couple days, and then somebody else takes on. But I could also have multiple rotations within that roster. Now, the roles within the roster can have a lot of variance, can have a lot of different players, and people can be different things at certain times depending on their rotation. But to go through the list of sort of the characters, the cast of characters within incident response, we start with the primary responder, or the primary on-call engineer, the person who is aware that they are supposed to be the person that acknowledges the awareness of an incident. They go and they start triaging and diagnosing. That is our primary responder. And they understand that that is their responsibility for their rotation, for their shift. Then you have a secondary responder. This is just another person who's maybe also going to be alerted at the same time a primary responder would be, but they are there as backup and support, maybe a second pair of eyes for the primary responder. Or even if the primary responder doesn't acknowledge their awareness of an incident within whatever your SLA may be, like say 3 minutes or less, then the secondary responder would be hopefully that next person who can acknowledge if the primary can't. It's also good to identify subject matter experts. Now, one caveat of subject matter experts is sometimes when we are the expert at a thing, at a certain piece of technology or a certain server, that inherently puts us on call all of the time. Someone will always come to us because we know how to solve that problem. Well, we want to move away from that, but we need to still be able to identify who are the subject matter experts so that if our primary and secondary responders run into problems and they can't diagnose and troubleshoot and resolve things on their own, they know who they can reach out to. Those people aren't always on call, but they are available to assist. The next one I think is important to talk about because this one is a role that is very useful for large companies or large-scale outages where many services are affected. Maybe many teams need to coordinate together. An incident commander is the person who runs point to make sure all the conversations go through one central place, that everybody is aware of what's happening, but they sort of serve as the person who will provide information or ask for information and make sure that they're really the coordination point between a lot of different moving components. The next one I think we don't see as much anymore, quite frankly, because we're starting to have almost all of our conversations in some sort of group chat, whether that's Teams or Slack or IRC. Most of us, I think, have realized that everything we do and say somehow ends up in chat. And so we don't need the scribe as more. But for those of you who still fire up some sort of phone bridge or a conference call or maybe a Teams video, that's great. Creates a space for all of your people to get together, but you have no real great way of transcribing what took place. And we need to know the conversations. We need to know what people were saying, what they were doing. If they were running commands within their interface, we want to know what all that stuff is. We want to try to capture it because it's data that we want to analyze in our post-incident review. And then the last one I want to talk about is the communication coordinator. This person works in conjunction with the incident commander so that more information is then shared outside of those who are actively working on the firefight. So there's other people within your company who do need to know what's going on, from the C-levels all the way down to sales and customer support, even your customers. Let that communication coordinator, be the one who addresses, hey, let's get something put out on Twitter, let's get an email out to our customers, but that person would sort of take the role of that. Now let's switch over and talk about rotations for just a moment. Rotations are nothing more than just scheduled shifts where you are on call for your recurring rotation. It might be something that happens for a few days in a row. There are lots of different ways that you can do these scheduled shifts, and 24/7 is typically where people start. That allows you to set up, say, I'm going to be on call today until the end of the week, although I would say one thing to point out is that the elite and high performers would never let their engineers be on call longer than a day or two, maybe 3 at the most, because to them, the system is made up of the people. And if you burn out the people and they can't respond as quickly and they're not fresh, then that's a detriment to the entire system. The people are the system. So we have to really be careful about how we design our scheduled on-call shifts. I want to pause for a moment just to sort of let this part sink in, because I know I'm talking a lot, talking really fast, trying to cover a lot. But this first section here, I want you to realize that what we're trying to do is still build something that allows us to respond with urgency, because there should be some urgency. We're not sending tickets to somebody who didn't help build the system. They don't really know. They're just going to shuffle tickets on to somebody else once they've looked at it for 5 minutes. We have to have some urgency, and we have to respond, not react. And I know that that's subtle, but it's very important. The other thing that I think is important to know is, as far as what we want to start tracking, is when did we know about this problem? And right now, as I mentioned, as far as some of the challenges go, we're not tracking any of that. So how do we know how we can improve if we don't even know when we were aware of the problem? So we want to start finding a way to track these things. We also want to know, how did we know about this? Is this something that our monitoring and our observability tools told us, or did a customer complain? That's important information. Again, if we're trying to improve and look for ways for, just create more resiliency in our system, we need to start looking at this type of information. Who is aware of this? If I'm the first person, or if I think I might be the first person who's somehow alerted to the issue, I would like to know, is there anybody else who's aware of this, because are they doing anything about it? So that's the thing that sometimes we start to step on each other. Is anyone else doing anything about this problem? And we want to make sure that that type of information is captured and made available too. And then last, how bad is it? Sometimes it's very difficult to know what customers are impacted. How bad is this? Is the data center on fire, or are we just talking some sort of minor thing? Severity is often very difficult to just look up and understand. Another thing we want to do to improve our situation is we want to create a conversation bridge. I already mentioned we already have most of our day-to-day conversations happening in some sort of group chat. We want to create the space that's just for the incident only. So we want to be able to spin up some sort of room that allows everyone on our team to discuss what's going on, share their ideas, their hypotheses on what should be, what's actually taking place, what they should do. But we want it to be only about the incident. We don't want conversations about other engineering efforts. We don't want conversations about what people want to do for lunch. It's only about this incident. So in terms of, as like a high-level summary of what we're talking about here, we want to be able to create and track issues. We want to be able to look up who's on call and hopefully notify them. And then we also want to create the space for people to actually have the conversations and do something about it. And when you look across all of the tooling that we have available to us within Azure, we don't have something that's specifically for incident response at the moment. So what we've done is kind of tried to think a little bit outside the box and get creative about how can we show off some of the tools within Azure, but also hammer home some of the points about incident response so that we can all start doing better at this. And we came up with a logic app that we thought would be fun to really stitch together just 3 things, and in very short order we can demonstrate some of these principles about incident response. So we're going to use a logic app, and for those of you who aren't familiar with logic apps, they're really just a way for you to automate a lot of different things within and outside of Azure, kind of stitching together data and tools. And if you're familiar with services like If This Then That or Zapier, it's very similar to that. And also there's some new stuff out that's been released here related to Flow and some different name changes that all kind of work very similar as logic apps. They're super powerful, very flexible, and hardly require any knowledge of code, which is my favorite part of the whole thing. Now, to get a little bit more specific about what we're going to be showing off here, Azure Boards is how we're going to track our issues. We're going to create a new issue within Azure Boards, which is part of Azure DevOps. Then we're going to use Azure Storage to go see who's on call. And I've created a very simple table that just shows I'm the person who's on call. And then we're going to use Microsoft Teams to create that isolated conversation bridge that we can then use later as data to understand in our post-incident review. To dive in a little bit more before we switch over and do the demo, Azure Boards is first going to create the issue for us. This is all part of the Logic app automation. So it creates the issue for us. It's also going to look up who's on call and assign me to that issue, which we'll see. And then throughout later in the Logic app, it'll come back up and update what that issue details are. I talked about how Azure Storage is part of this. This is really just to look up who's on call. We'll show that. It's super simple. And then the last part is Microsoft Teams. There's a way for us to use a connector in there that's going to actually create the channel for us on the fly, then allow us to post the details of the channel. And then last, I'll show you how we can slide into the engineers' DMs and let them know that they're supposed to do something. All right, so let's see if my internet's working here, and let's try to pop over to the Azure portal. Okay. I'm going to assume that our internet's still live here, but if we get disconnected, I might have to log back in. So we're looking at the design view of a logic app. And how many of you have ever played with logic apps? Is this a new thing? Oh, great. There's a lot of people who still are not familiar with this. And like I said, it's a no-code way of stitching together some really cool stuff. These first couple steps aren't that important in terms of understanding what's happening here. It's really just sending in an HTTP request and then sending back a response. So let's dive into this part here. So the first real step of our logic app, like I mentioned, it's going to go in and create a new work item in Azure Boards, in Azure DevOps. And you can see I'm already connected to my own account, my own project here, and I've chosen to use an issue as the work item. There's a lot of different things you can choose from, but I felt like within our list here of things that we could create on the fly through a logic app, in our scenario, an issue is the closest thing to an incident. So we're choosing an issue. And then in the title here, I'm taking information, which is really just data coming from the payload, coming from the alert itself, which is nothing more than JSON. That's coming in. I'm taking out the alert type field and the severity description, and I'm using that to build the title of my work item. And we'll see how that works in a moment. Then if we look at the next step of our logic app, I'm already connected into my Microsoft Teams, and what's going to happen automatically is it's going to create a channel for me with the display name showing a little pager icon, a little pager emoji, followed by the word incident. And then I'm taking the ID number, which was literally just created from the work issue, from the work item issue, and we're going to use that as part of the name. So what we should see is incident, and then the number that matches the issue number also in Azure DevOps. Next, we're going to go into the work item again, and the reason is because now that we've created a channel within Microsoft Teams, I have a URL for that channel, and I can dynamically on the fly take the ID from the work item, take the ID of the new channel, and create my team a URL so that they can get into this chat channel very quickly just by looking at the issue number within Azure DevOps. The next step, this is where we go look up who's on call. And I told you it's just a very simple table storage in Azure Storage. Let me just hop over and show you how simple it is. So we're in Azure Storage here. I'm in tables. You can see I've got two tables, one that's called on call, another that's related to our status page we'll talk about in a minute. And it's nothing more than two entries. One person's on call, one's not. Okay, so there's nothing too fancy here, but I just want to show you how we can go and extract information out of what appears to be nothing more than a spreadsheet, but it's actually just a table storage. Let's get back to our logic app. So we're looking through there. We're going to grab the person who's on call is set to true, which, as you just saw, is me. Once we have that field, we're going to go through it and really just kind of condition the data, format the data so that I can use it in the next step, but I'm just extracting out the email address. And then our last two steps here, first we'll go back into our work item, and the very same work item, we're going to then change the assign to field. So it starts off that the work item is not assigned to anybody. And then the logic app will go look me up and assign me to it. Next and final step within our logic app here is we're going to take some of the details that we got out of the original alert, as well as some of the details from our work item. We're going to create a link, and we're going to put in some more information, some more context about what's happening, what's taking place. So this is what's going to post into the channel itself, and you can see a lot of it's just HTML. We're going to drop in a little image. We're going to provide a URL that takes us back into our work items. So to see this in action, I'm going to pop over into, if I can find it, into Azure Boards. So we're in Azure Boards here. I've already got two issues that I ran earlier just to sort of test everything out and make sure it's working. And now I'm going to pull up my Postman app, which is something I'm just using to send in an alert. We're just simulating some sort of alert coming in. And if I move this down out of the way, cross my fingers that the demo gods are shining happily on us, we should see an incident create, or not an incident, but an issue show up here in Azure Boards. And there it goes. Usually I don't have to refresh that, but I had to jump over different Wi-Fi there. But it's really fun to see that all happen in place. And you can see it's already assigned it to me. So actually, let me see if I can do this one more time and we'll try to catch it before it assigns it to me. So I hit send. Let's move this over here. Okay, so we've got it immediately. Nothing's assigned to me yet, but let's give it 3 or 4 seconds. Actually, it was much faster than I expected. Sweet. So, yeah, you can clap for that. I love when demos work. So you can see we're creating an incident, something at least we can identify as an incident. It's really just an issue within Azure boards. And I can now come in here and find the details of it, including who's on call and who is responding to it. And then if you see there, see that communication channel right here? This is part of the logic app. So when I click this, it launches Teams for me. And I come up here and I've got incident 3, and you can see incident 4, which I haven't gone into yet. So it created the channels within Microsoft Teams for me. It threw in my little alert animation, and I've got a link here that'll take me right back into boards. And we've also got a few other points. And if you were in on OPS10, we talked about actionable alerting and making sure that you provide at least 4 kind of main key points when you're alerting people so that they know what's going on, what they're supposed to do. So you can see, you could customize this alert to have a lot more detail, but you understand what I'm trying to get at here. So that's all great, but we talked about how can we get the engineer on call to be alerted to this problem, because we're kind of missing that step. So let me go back to our logic app, and let's add one more thing. I'm going to go back into Microsoft Teams, and this time I want to post a message as the Flowbot to a user, essentially just sending them a direct message. So I'm going to come in here and we'll put in something like new incident, please act, please acknowledge. I'm going to say we want to send this to the email that we just took from our on-call lookup. And it's going to change it so it starts doing it in a little loop here to iterate through it several times. And then I need to add one more message, one more thing in here. And I like to just take the name of the actual channel we created a little bit earlier. So I'm going to come up here and grab the name of the channel. This little box that comes up on the right, it's just showing you all your available fields that you have to work with as it's stepping through the logic app. So I got stuff from the payload that came in. I got all the work items. I got all the channels. It's building a dynamic list for me to choose from. So I'm choosing display name, and I'll save that. Let's go back over to boards. And I'll say I've completed all these. We solved those problems. Send another one in. There it is. We'll give a few moments for Teams to do its thing. Okay, you can see Teams just got its new incident. And up here in the corner, I've got my message. And there you see new incident, please act. So I can come in here and say, yep, thumbs up, I'm on it. And that's that. All right, let's get back to our talk. So we talked about creating an incident. Obviously, this isn't something you're going to do at production scale. This is just something to get you thinking about what you need to do for incidents and responding to incidents, and hopefully show you some powerful things you can do in Azure logic apps. So, but the main point I want to take away here is that when you start prioritizing for good, clear communication and making sure information's where it's available to others, suddenly you're able to just do so much more quickly. So when you can create that space for engineers to have the conversations, and then we can go back and improve on that later, that's what we're after. So that covers the response phase, but I figure a lot of you are probably in here wanting to understand, well, what are some of the tools, yeah, I know about the problem, but how do I actually fix the problem? That's part of what we think of as remediation, not the response. But a lot of times that starts to blur, especially if our actions maybe cause more problems than we had in the first place. So a lot of times the response and the remediation tend to sort of overlap or go back and forth. And you got multiple engineers coming in and doing more things. Those lines start to blur a little bit. So we want to now, in terms of Tailwind Traders challenges, take it one step further. If we're going to try to speed up the time it takes to respond, we should also speed up the time it takes to fix the dang things once we know that there's a problem. And in order to do that in sort of our new world, we're going to find some way to provide some extra context. We understand that engineers, if you look at all the different engineers on our team, everyone's going to show up to an incident with different mental models about how the system works, about different ideas of what step one should be. Maybe one person goes and tails the logs, Another person goes and runs some query and takes a look at the metrics. Everybody has different ideas. There isn't always a right or wrong way. There's no single path to success or failure. But we want to provide people a starting point. Where should you go? What should you go look at? And also, if you get stuck, who can you escalate to? We're trying to unload, or offload, I should say, more of the responsibilities of on-call to our team in general, not just ops, not just SRE. That's not their responsibility. It is all of our responsibility to have these things up and running as much as we'd like. So who can we escalate to? What types of things are helpful for those first responders? Is it a query? Is it a log? Is it something that's related to what's going on? Can we look into that and provide that in a troubleshooting guide? Also, can we just provide some simple links, maybe some additional resources? Something that's going to help these people find answers to questions. Because you know how it goes when you're trying to deal with an issue, your brain just sort of starts to forget all the non-important things, like where is that one link, where is that one doc? And if we could just provide links to that, that's going to help speed up the thing, the whole thing. The one thing that we are definitely not doing is providing some sort of prescriptive checklist. Anybody know why? Well, it may not work, but if you have a battle-tested checklist of how to fix the thing, it's time to automate. All right, so the other thing we want to do is update our stakeholders. We talked about there's other people in the company, not just the first responders and the people in the engineering team swarming to the problem who want to know and need to know. We have internal teams. We have other people who, have other things that they're doing with their jobs too. We're all working together, and so we have to stay in sync with what's going on. So we're going to find a way that we can acknowledge to our team, we're aware of this problem, we're doing something about it. We're going to provide some clear communication to you as frequently as possible, but we're also going to set expectations on when you expect to hear from us. So we'll say, this is what we know, this is what we're doing, and we'll get back to you in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, but we want to be clear about those expectations because that's how we're going to prevent people from coming and doing that shoulder tap. Hey, what's going on? How much longer? Who's affected? None of those questions are helpful when we're trying to fix problems, I guarantee you. Remediation improvements. If we talk about at a high level in summary, what we're trying to do here, we want to provide extra context and guidance. We also want to find a way to update our stakeholders. And in terms of showing off a demo, how we could do this, we're going to show troubleshooting guides, which I'm not going to do a deep dive in. I mostly just want to show you some things about troubleshooting guides maybe you didn't realize. Then I'm going to show you a little bit about chat ops, which is nothing more than, well, I'll tell you what. How many of you are thinking, what is this chat ops thing? Have you ever heard of chat ops? So chat ops is really nothing more than just taking the tools you're already using and putting them into the conversation you're already having. So if that's Teams, Slack, IRC, doesn't matter, we're going to take all the other things that we're doing and somehow infuse it into the conversation so we have a really high fidelity idea of what's happening when things are breaking and people are doing things to resolve those issues. And earlier I talked about having good, clear communication. When you move to a chat ops approach, that just sort of happens naturally. This collaboration between engineers on what to do, how you're solving things, it's all just part of it. That also starts to help share more of that institutional knowledge that's in our most senior engineers. Let's get all that out for everybody to understand. We don't want it to be a scenario where only Jason can fix this problem because he's the only one who knows how to. That should not be a problem in today's age. This speaks to this next part here is we're trying to create more visibility, more awareness, more operational awareness on what is actually the reality of our systems, including the people. As you can imagine, this helps others learn how to do the things that they're supposed to do. When you start running commands and having links and just sharing what you're doing within chat, guess what? You are disseminating that. You're teaching other people how to do these things. And another last point I want to make is when you start having these conversations, when you can see how your peers and your coworkers and even leadership are thinking and what they're saying and why they're doing the things they're doing, how they're coming to those conclusions, it is so much easier to be empathetic and start to understand what it's like to be on call, what it's like to build these things, what it's like to do whatever the job is. So empathy is always a big thing we want to focus on. So for the chat ops portion of this demo, we're going to, as you can imagine, use Microsoft Teams. And what that's going to do is we're going to use an outgoing webhook. to just fire off something to an Azure function. That's right, we've got serverless in this demo, which is awesome. And what happens here is it's just going to go run some Node.js that then will go update a static HTML page within Azure Storage to let us know and let other people on our team know that we are aware of the problem. So let's hop over now. And I want to first start with a troubleshooting guide. If you're in session OPS10, you realized dashboards are nothing more than JSON representations. Troubleshooting guides are the exact same thing, and that's the main point I want to take away here. You can take these troubleshooting guides and you can version control them. You treat them just like code, just like our infrastructure is code, but now it's context is code. So I'm going to come in here and just switch over to raw so I can copy this real quick and jump back over into Azure. And I'm going to find the easiest way to get to my application insights here. We'll jump into application insights, and if you've been in here before, you know that over here on the navigation pane on the left is our troubleshooting guides, and there's already some really great stuff in here by default. If you've never created a troubleshooting guide, don't worry, you can just use any of these as a starting point. But what I'm going to do, because I have the JSON for my own troubleshooting guide, is just press New, and then all the way over here on the end, even though it's already in an editor mode, I can click on the advanced editor to go into our code editor. And you can see there's two different ways that we can insert our JSON here, either as a gallery template or as an ARM template. The stuff I grabbed over here is actually a gallery template, so I'm going to highlight that and delete it, drop it in, and when I hit apply, we should see my troubleshooting guide that I had stored over in GitHub. And you can see here at the top, some of the things I mentioned that are useful in a troubleshooting guide is give me links. Give me a link to my master dashboard that shows me all the observability assets and all the different things I would like to know about. Give me a link that takes me back into my incident dashboard. Give me something that takes me over to where I can actually see what's going on. Give me a link into the incident chat. This will take you right into that Teams channel. So provide that context. Provide shortcuts to people. That's what we're after in a troubleshooting guide. We're not looking for, like I said, a prescriptive checklist on here's what to do, just guidance, okay? So that's the troubleshooting guide, and that's all I really wanted to show you on that. Now let me hop over, if I can find it, to our function. This is our serverless aspect here. Azure Functions are really kind of nice if you just want a sort of low footprint on running code, running whatever it is, don't want to have an entire server or data farm or whatever to do these things. Functions is kind of your new way. So I'm going to open up, we've got, this is part of our status page. So I've got this HTML, it's a static HTML site, and if I was to look at our static HTML site, you can see right now it says everything's okay. Now I'm going to go back to my function here, and if we take a look at the code within our Teams webhook, okay, here's our code. I don't have time really to go through this, but there's only about 80 lines of code here. You can see it only has a few things it can do. It can open, update, and close a status page. But what I want to show you is I'm going to grab the function URL here. Oops. Copy the function URL, and if I go back into Teams and go to my main Teams where I can manage the team, and into Apps, down here on the right, we've got a Create Webhook. I know it's tough to see it. I don't know if I can zoom in on that. But if I click on Create Webhook, and let's just do, we give it a name. We're essentially creating a bot type of thing. And that URL I grabbed from my function, I paste in here to the callback, and I've got to give it some sort of description, and we'll hit Create. Now, I'm going to let's just pull up our status page so we can see this thing in action. All right, so let's just go into the most recent incident that we created, number 5 here. Now, if I do @ and then status, if I can type, uh-oh, did I cancel it? Sure did. Apps, create webhook. Oh, we got the wrong thing. I think I get this here. No, maybe that was the right thing. The joy of live stage demos. All right, now let's see. Oh, you know what? It's in here twice. It was just a little slow on me. All right, let's try it again. I think we're in good shape. There it is. Status page. Now if I type open, and get back over to my status page, this should happen pretty quickly. There we go. Now, I had to hit refresh just because I'm having some network issues here, but this should be in real time. So if I do status page again, just for the sake of time, it comes back and it updates the status page without me doing anything. Okay? So that's part of the function. All right, now we've gotten held up on time here a little bit, so let's move forward. If you want to play along with our next thing here and you got your phone handy, I encourage you to snap a picture of this QR code. It's going to launch you into the Tailwind Traders front-end app, and you'll see something that looks very similar to something like this, right? You're starting to see some errors. You may have to log in. You can log in with a fake credential. But either way, our shopping cart is broken. We have an incident. Something's wrong. We got to scramble our teams. We've talked about how we can do that. We've talked about some different things that we would use to get things working a little faster. Let me show you some of the stuff that I think is super helpful when it comes to diagnosing problems within your systems. The first one is over in Application Insights. Let me just back up and get to Application Insights overview. We talked about dashboards already a little bit, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but they are super important. You want to have a really good dashboard, and if you don't know where to start, you don't know how to, what's important, just use this application dashboard link right here. When you click this, we're going to automatically generate one for you that has most of the key things that you're probably going to want as a good starting point. One thing that doesn't happen that I think is super important to add is Azure Service Health. So I'm going to just look for that real quick. Azure Service Health is a great way to visibly see, is it you or is it us? Because quite honestly, it's going to be us every once in a while. Nothing major, hopefully, but we do have problems. Every cloud provider, everybody who works in tech has problems. So it's a good way to come in here and say, okay, yeah, there's something going on with Azure Databricks and the East US 2. So that's a good way to just ease your concerns that it isn't something on your side. And it's so important, I think it's good to go ahead and pin that to your dashboard. The next thing I think is super important within tools that you can use is our application map. David talked about that in Ops 10 a little bit too. I want to show you how I can use this application map to drill into exactly what's going on that's causing those issues. We can see I've got some sort of problem here with the calls into my back-end shopping cart. And if I was to click on this, I think I counted this as 1, 2, and I'm just going to keep really just following the breadcrumbs all the way until I get to an end-to-end transaction. And this tells me exactly what's going on. I've got a socket that's hung up down here. And if we zoom in a little bit, I can see what the problem really is. We've got a malformed URL. So that's our problem, and that's what we need to go fix. Unfortunately, that requires us going into the system to do it. So we're going to have to take a look at that. But one other thing I want to show you before we run out of time, and let me get over to it, is log analytics, which was already covered just a little bit, if I can zoom out of here. But log analytics are great because it allows you to query any part of the system. So let me get back into Application Insights. And you can get to log analytics in a lot of different ways. So I'm going in through this way here. And we're not going to go over the ideas behind the queries and all that time for the sake of time, but what I do want to show you is that when you come into Application Insights, immediately it's going to, at least when you come in the way I did, it's going to show you Application Insights and only really just the stuff that's related to the application layer. But we can set the scope of what we're querying to an entire resource group. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I can come in here and say, I want to be able to query from log analytics the whole resource group. And by doing so, you can see some of the queries I've run in the past. I can query into my containers, which are running in Kubernetes. I can query anything I want. This is my interface to ask the questions and to get those back, as well as doing the SLIs and the SLOs that David showed. So that's the thing I wanted to show you here within log analytics. Obviously, we could talk about this for hours, but I think log analytics, dashboards, troubleshooting guides, those are three big things that you're going to want easily accessible to you when you're remediating problems. Now, just for fun, in the 1 minute or so that I've got left, even though this isn't really part of remediation, I think it might be good. We've already shown off that this is in Kubernetes, and this particular problem requires me to go into production in our Kubernetes system and actually fix this, which we don't like to go into production and fix things that way, but that's what we have to do in this case. So I'm going to, assuming my shell will allow me to log in, we'll see if we can log into Kubernetes and actually do something about this. Okay. Now, I always like to make sure I'm just in the right subscription. For those of you who've played around with Kubernetes or know Kubernetes well, you'll understand I'm just logging into the console here, getting into my admin, and what I need to do is, I'm already aware of which one this is, because maybe I've dealt with this problem before, and it's just as simple as going into the config map for my shopping cart. And we can see here, we're missing that 3. So insert a 3. Now, for those of you who know Kubernetes, you know that we're not done. Kubernetes is I read on Twitter today, it's the new have you turned it off and on. So what we're going to do is just, once I get my prompt back, we're going to delete the pod. But I don't know what the pod's name is because it changes all the time. So I got to come in here and copy that. We'll run that. And then for those of you who still have the app up, you should see these errors start to go away. All right. A few more seconds here while we get back to the slides. So that was a whirlwind, I know. I just wanted to show you, those are the tools that you're going to want to get familiar with, right? I showed you all simple things. It's not about the tech. It's about what you do with it. Okay, last takeaway. I want you to find ways to make all your information and your resources more available to a broader audience. Don't just dump this stuff on your ops team or the people who you thought were the ones who were supposed to respond and deal with these outages. This is for all of us. And when you make information and resources available, it's much easier to solve problems much quicker. So to summarize the whole talk here, I want you to focus on these 3 things as the takeaways back home, and you can start looking for improvement. Respond with urgency. Everything should be urgent. We're not talking about stupid tickets that go to somebody offshore that has never touched the code in your system. That's not what we're talking about. There has to be some response, but not reactionary. Respond. Next one, prioritize for good, clear communication. Overly communicate. Say everything. Be extremely verbose in even what you're thinking and feeling. Like, I was super nervous running those kube control commands. I should say that in chat because we need to discuss that in our post-incident review. Why don't I have confidence in that command? Next one, make the information and resources available. That's going to speed up everything for you. If you're interested in learning more about the docs, we've got a link here, or more about Logic Apps, we've got a link into the docs. Same for Microsoft Learn. If you haven't checked out Learn, it is so cool. I've learned a ton about Azure, and I work for the company just by going in and playing around with Teams, so I encourage you to do that. If you didn't see, we have free certification exams, so we'd love for you to do that. And then, I already showed you this earlier, but if you'd like to download the deck, the whole system that I was in, including the Kubernetes stuff, all of that is available through these links. And then we've got a couple more talks left today that all sort of fall in line with our whole story about building operational resiliency. And with that, I've got one other thing I'd like to show you here. This is my puppy at home. We got some bad news. He's a little sick, but I thought maybe if we could all say hello to him, he might cheer him up. It was really difficult to leave him home. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you sticking around, and we've got a lot more to talk about when it comes to building resilient systems, so hopefully we'll see you at the rest of the sessions. So otherwise, thank you.